Media Group.
Your friend in Central Illinois. WHOW.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. My guest on the Zoom this morning is Tony Kirkman. He's the executive director of the Piatt County Mental Health Center. A quick note, the morning show streams to Facebook and YouTube, and it's brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Tony, my good friend, how are you this morning?
I'm chilly, but I'm doing well. How about you, sir?
Not too bad. Not as good as you. Your Bears seem to have a quarterback. They seem to have a coach, and all of a sudden they seem to have competency, which is all three upgrades at this point. So you got to be feeling pretty good going into 2026.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, going into the postseason, I felt like we were playing with house money.
Sure.
I didn't think we were going to get there. So hopefully we continue to draft wise and don't have such a soft secondary, and we'll have a defense next year.
Sure. Very good. Well, diving into some things on a little heavier note, Tony, of course, that's kind of the nature of the beast in the industry you work in. But, let's dive into, you had a really good idea for a discussion point this morning, and I'd love to just start there. How do we, as we go into 2026, maybe for some 2025 wasn't a great year, whether there was loss, whether there was change, whether there was, mistakes, and you're just kind of recovering from those things. It's all in the past, right? So how do we deal with the past? I mean, for some, maybe they deal with it head on, they take ownership, they learn, and they're moving forward. For others, maybe they dwell on it, and it maybe impacts, how they move forward in the new year. It impacts relationships or whatever the case may be. Let's discuss that. Where do we start with this conversation, my friend?
Yeah, so I guess let me start off with, I'm not a huge fan of big New Year's resolutions. I think it sets us up for way too much anxiety and the potential for way much disappointment. So the good news is that everybody got through January 16th. That would be known as National Quitters Day. That's when, proportionately, most of the people have given up on their New Year's resolution. So if you're still hanging with it, still reading all those books, still doing all those crunches, or running outside, you've made it. Congratulations. But I think that I'm a little bit skeptical in mental wellness, behavioral health, when we try to run away from our past, we try to deny our past. I think that our past is what defines us, what gives us wisdom, it's what gives us experience. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what gets a lot of people in problems behaviorally, is because understanding that we're constantly in growth, we're constantly in construction. It is okay to say that was the old me and I'm growing up on that, because if you don't put it in the right context, that it was part of your growth, then that's the opportunity for your mind, for individuals to use that to get shame-based. And that's the dark part, is where we don't talk about the past because it reminds us of a difficult time. Well, that is part of your story. That's the beauty of what's gotten you here. Mm-hmm. And you and I have talked a couple of times about there's a Japanese art called kintsugi, which talks about there can be beauty from brokenness. So they take these pieces of pottery and they fuse them back together with pieces of gold, so you can intentionally see the brokenness, because there's beauty in the brokenness. Mm-hmm. If we learn how to heal from it.
Yeah. What about those that struggle to heal, to struggle to face their past? Whether they run from it, whether they dwell in it, maybe they just get into a cycle of those two things, dwelling then running. I don't know if that's a thing, but how about just maybe those that struggle to deal with the past?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in our field, that's one of the things that we see a lot of, is that there are, whether it's shame-based or quite frankly, whether or not it's trauma-based. If it's trauma-based, then it makes for better terms, it makes an imprint upon your cognition and your reaction. So that's why we have things known as post-traumatic stress disorder. Is it so traumatic that it's essentially again, I know my mental health people will beat me up on this, but a mental bruise. And we have to learn how to heal from that because, probably the easiest is combat veterans that experience loud noises, bangs, unexpected stuff. Because they've been traumatized, their brain now is inhibited to respond in a certain way. And in my training, it has been shown that you have to go back into that to learn how to, as we would call it, create some cognitive dissonance, to create some restructuring. Like you have to go back to put it back together. If you run from it, if you deny it, then you mask it, and that can be done through a lot of unhealthy things of projection, denial, substance use, other maladaptive behavior. So I would just say therapeutically is like, while it is extremely uncomfortable, the work has to be done.
You hit on something there, Tony, for folks, their past is, and not to be, to compare, past, because people's lived experience is what they have to go off of. You can't decide your lived experience, but, for some people, man, they go through a lot. I think of, you mentioned veterans. I think of law enforcement, some of the things they see, whether it's people that have, lost a friend in their arms or a family member in their arms or whatever, whatever kind of trauma is really, really, kind of severing, if you will. And a lot of those individuals just kind of maybe refuse to deal with that. I mean, I've talked with law enforcement folks that are like, I could probably use therapy, but I'm going to take this to the grave with me, and that just doesn't sound healthy. So how about that?
Yeah, first and foremost, I want to say thank you to our military, thank you to our first responders that choose a profession that sadly puts them in trauma's way. I've got a lot of friends that are in law enforcement and military, and I've heard them say, well, when I go into those situations, I just put a mask on. And I don't want to be disrespectful to that at all, because we all have to find our mechanisms to survive. But my concern would be like, what does that mask mean? Does that mean that we completely disassociate? Because, I still want a first responder to feel something, to be reciprocative. And so, but I also don't, they're dealing with death and pestilence and violence every single day. So if you don't figure out an outlet, if you don't figure out, like, I'm here to do a job, I'll use a word, there's evil in the world, and my job is to shine light into that, or to provide care. I'm really concerned about what that does post-trauma exposure, because you're exactly right, Seth. I've got a lot of friends, and I'm like, probably would benefit to talking to somebody. And they're like, there's absolutely no way I'm talking to anybody, for two reasons. One, I'll just use the example. Dad said that you don't talk to anybody about it. A real man handles their business. Or two, I don't dare put anything on record that could lose my FOID card and lose my profession. So that's why there are a few programs that I do love for law enforcement, first responders, that therapy is completely off the books. Essentially, there's no record. There's just, care and treatment. But yeah, lots of people that run from working through it. And then I would just say, okay, well, if you're not doing therapy, what healthy behavior are you doing to address these issues? Because it is not natural for the human brain to be exposed to that much trauma repeatedly.
Sure. And Tony, I wonder, someone like myself out there that, I don't really dwell on the past. Like I maybe I learned from it. I don't know, but just kind of, for me, it's just, okay, that happened, and now I'm on to the next thing, and just try not to get caught up in the past and dwelling on it and letting it bog me down. How about that individual?
Yeah, I think that's good too. I mean, even though I would, again, we don't want to turn this into, Seth, sit down on the couch and we're doing therapy.
I don't want that either. Nobody wants that.
Yeah. I would also say, I bet you didn't say, oh, that sucked. I'm moving on. You've learned from it.
Mhm.
You've learned lessons from it. You've learned how to cope with it. You've even maybe in some of those situations looked back on it with lament and said, if I had the wisdom now into that event, I would have handled that differently. I'm in my late 40s, and the more I'm finding out, things don't have to be a fight. I don't have to win all the time. It doesn't matter. The relationships, the connections, that's what matters. My reputation, not really so much like, am I a good person? Am I sowing light into the world? But to your point, I would say putting the appropriate context to it, and also looking back on those events and saying, I didn't have access to the resources I have now. So cutting yourself a little bit of grace, because I'm like, oh man, I should have. Well, in the moment, I didn't have those available to me, and there's beauty in growth. Like, you can use your past experiences, good or bad, to make positive contributions into the next generation. Like with your kids or with whoever you're mentoring right now. It's all context, man. It really is. And I would say, don't be so hard on yourself, and cue it up to lessons learned. Again, not to say too much on the Japanese culture, but there's a term called wabi sabi, and it just means imperfect beauty. It's like, we're all imperfect, right? But we're just trying to put beauty into this world the best way we know how.
Sure. Very good. Anything else there, Tony, you want to get into in terms of, how we deal with our past, not dwelling on it, not letting it bog us down, or, healthy ways to deal with it? Anything you didn't get out there you want to put out there for us?
Yeah. I just come back to, fitness people would say embrace the suck, because the first couple of exercises are hard. It's the same thing about therapy. You've got to embrace it. You've got to understand that that's a part of you. Please don't look at your one time with therapy as, the universal reaction to therapy. I've had a lot of clients that it just didn't work out for us for whatever reason. So it might have been me. You might have a bad therapist. So give it another try. It's worth it. You are worth it. Engage into it. Do the hard work, because that's how we grow. And there is imperfect beauty there in everyone that's listening right now.
Sure. Yeah. Having a match with a counselor or therapist is probably a key in that process, right?
Absolutely. And again, therapists are like shoes. Not all of them are going to fit right, and some of them are going to hurt as you walk. So change them. Like, you're in control. That's what I would say. You are the client, and you get to choose wherever you want to go. I've heard therapists say, I don't care what people say, we're going to work on this. Well, quite frankly, that's a horrible therapist, because we are here to walk alongside the client in whichever direction, to whatever extent they want. And this is one thing that I'll just throw out as a therapist. The beauty about therapy is this: you can come into my office and present however you want. You could lie straight to my face. That's your choice. That's your right. However, you're not going to make as much progress if you're being inauthentic. So my job as a therapist is to create an environment where you feel safe. So if I don't do a job where you don't feel emotionally, relationally, psychologically, and physically safe, you're not going to bring your true self to me anyway. So if you don't feel safe, switch shoes, get a new therapist.
Yeah, very good. How do folks learn about all things Piatt County Mental Health Center, Tony?
Give me a call, 217-762-5371. Check us out online, piattmhc.org, or check us out on Facebook.
That's Tony Kirkman. He is the executive director of the Piatt County Mental Health Center, our guest on the Zoom. More to come with Tony on the morning show on WHOW.
WHOW.
Let's check the opening numbers now at the Chicago Board of Trade on this Monday. Jim Taylor, RFD Radio Network, steady to mostly lower for corn, beans, and Chicago wheat. March corn opening 428 3/4, down 1 3/4. May corn down 1.5, 436.5, and December new crop 454 3/4, down half a penny. March beans starting the day 1065.5, down 2 1/4. May beans down 1.5, 1078, and new crop November 1081 1/4, down 3/4. March Chicago wheat opening 527 3/4, down 2. May wheat down a penny, 538. July wheat 550, down a penny. March KC wheat 537.5, down 3 1/4. March bean meal 294.30, down 560, and March bean oil 54.46, up 49 cents. This is the RFD Radio Network.
This is Inside.
Happy New Year from all of us here at Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton and Farmer City. This is Scott Baum. Most of our customers trade for a different SUV or truck because their needs change each year. That's good because we have transportation options for you. Plus, we need your trade. Our selection of top quality pre-owned trades come from you. Come see our ever-changing Chevrolet and Buick inventory today. Chevrolet, together, let's drive. BaumChevyBuick.com, right from the start.
Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Once again, good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest on the Zoom today, Tony Kirkman, Executive Director of the Piatt County Mental Health Center. And Tony, I know that 2026 is going to be a year for the Illinois Youth Survey. Just kind of remind us, what's this survey? What's it all about? When does it go out? Who takes it? What are some of the basics on this thing?
Absolutely. So hold on to your hat. We'll throw a few acronyms your way and try not to blow you off the desk. So the U of I School of Social Workers Center for Prevention, Research, and Development, CPRD, puts together an IYS, an Illinois Youth Survey, which is a self-administered, self-reported questionnaire that takes the reports of all 8th, 10th, and 12th graders that agree to complete this. It is about a 35 to 40-minute questionnaire that asks all of these students to self-report on issues that are related to substance use, mental health, family dynamics, risk assessments, how close they feel to their teachers, how close that they feel to their peers, screen time usage, times that they eat meals with their families. It really is kind of taking a really quick snapshot of the family dynamics that are affecting teens as substance use and mental health and feelings of belongingness.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So what do you use this data for, Tony? What does the state use it for? What does the Piatt County Mental Health Center use it for? Where does this data go? What's it used for?
Yeah, so primarily, I think one of the things that the state is looking at is that as they implement what they call youth prevention education, or YPE, when they put that in the schools, they're trying to target, one, whether or not the method is effective, but it's also trying to figure out, are there emerging trends in behavior that we need to shift our education to? So, for example, one of the things that we've watched over the last 6 to 8 years is that we've been watching the effects of vaping, the effects of the legalization of marijuana, the effects of heroin or opioids that have kind of come in since 2016. Two of the most recent ones, obviously mental health is something that we watch. Two of the most recent ones that I've found that's interesting is that we're starting to ask questions about gambling, and we're also starting to ask questions. Just this last survey that was done 2 years ago was the first time I noticed that we are asking questions about young people identifying and being in recovery from a substance use. That was quite interesting. We also are asking questions about gender identification to make sure that the the surveys and the delivery of the youth prevention education is inclusive and is not discriminatory to anybody.
Mm-hmm. So what's your takeaway from things like substance use and, recreational marijuana, the expansion of that, gambling? I mean, Tony, kids, the young fellas out there are into sports betting big time. I mean, it's everywhere they look. It's on ESPN, it's on Fox Sports, it's on YouTube and TikTok. They're into it, Tony. What's your takeaway from some of these topics and how it's impacting our kids?
Yeah, I guess I'll go back to whenever I was a kid. And
Tony, we're going to have to save that for another time, my friend. I just looked at the clock. I wish I had 20 more minutes with you. I apologize. Sorry about that. I got to let you go.
That's all right.
I hate that I did that to you. Tony Kirkman, Executive Director of the Piatt County Mental Health Center, my guest on the Zoom. Network News comes your way next.
WHOW.